Nigeria's anti-graft agency's acting chairman, Mr. Ibrahim Magu, faces presidential probe panel at a presidential villa in Abuja. And the Ondo State Governor, Rotimi Akeredolu, loses a close cabinet member as the secretary to the state government resigns. This follows after his deputy resigned from the APC. The governor today announced that he is now tested negative to COVID-19. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloye in Lagos. It's been one day, one drama in Ondo State ahead of the governorship election. Today, another drama played out. This came days after the deputy governor resigned from the ruling All Progressives Congress to go to the PDP. The secretary to the state government, Mr. Ifedayo Abegunde, has resigned his appointment. The governor announced the appointment, a replacement for Mr. Abegunde, and Mr. Temitayo Oluwatoyi is now the new secretary to the state government. Meanwhile, Governor Akeredolu also revealed that he has tested negative for COVID-19. He had announced in a video via his official Facebook account last week that he tested positive for the virus. According to him, he presented himself for COVID-19 test again, and the result came out negative today. Let's now check out some other stories that we have for you on our political roundup.
Ahead of the Tuesday's meeting between the National Assembly and the Minister of Labour over the Public Works Programme, the Senate President Ahmed Lawan insists that the programme remains suspended until the executive plans how it will implement it.
The National Assembly was...
Briefing journalists in Abuja, Senator Lawan says the National Assembly conceptualized and appropriated 52 billion naira for the Public Works Programme, and part of its oversight is to understand how the executive intends on implementing the programme. The National Assembly Joint Committee on Labour was engaged in a war of words with the Minister of State for Labour, Mr. Festus Keyamo, on Tuesday, June the 30th, over the modalities for choosing members of the selection committees in each state for the programme.
The National Assembly was to pass that request. The National Assembly was conscious, through scrutiny, that NDE, the National Directorate of Employment, will be the agency to implement the program.
We are not saying 8 ministries are supervised.
Meanwhile, the Minister of State, Mr. Festus Keyamo, has reacted to the National Assembly stance ahead of his appearance. Mr. Keyamo insists that the National Assembly cannot circumscribe or question the discretion of the minister to establish these committees to monitor or oversee the program. In a statement signed by him, Mr. Keyamo says once a person who is given discretionary powers by law, that it is impossible to question the exercise of that discretion if it is done within the confines of the law. The minister has asked that he will be allowed to clarify issues relating to the programs publicly. And the Speaker of the House of Representatives has frowned at the refusal of some banks to honor the invitation of the House Joint Committee on Finance, Banking and Currency. According to the Speaker, the House will not fail to invoke the weight of the law against the banks if needed. The committee is investigating the alleged over $30 billion annual revenue leakage in the country. And the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has adjourned the trial of former Governor of Ekiti State, Ayodele Fayose, over an alleged 2.2 billion naira fraud to October the 20th. The former governor was present in court, but the case failed to go on as the court adjourned at the instance of the counsel to the EFCC, Rotimi Jacobs. The EFCC lawyer told Justice Chukwujekwu Aneke that the prosecution witness who was supposed to testify today was not available as one of his family members was being quarantined in an isolation center.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. And so let's get to perhaps the biggest story in the land today is about the EFCC acting chairman, Mr. Ibrahim Magu. Well, He is the head of Nigeria's major anti-graft agency, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and he's been facing a presidential probe panel at the presidential villa in Abuja. The EFCC said today that the boss honored an invitation by a presidential panel reviewing the activities of the EFCC at the banquet hall wing of the presidential villa in Abuja. According to the statement by the spokesperson of the EFCC, Mr. Magu was served the invitation to the panel while on his way to the force headquarters, that's the police force headquarters, Abuja, for a meeting. The statement goes on to say that the EFCC boss was neither arrested nor forced to honor the invitation, and that a member of a legal team from the EFCC is also with him on the panel. Today, on the program tonight, we will dissect what the implication of Mr. Magu facing that probe panel means, some of the allegations that have been raised, and what this means also for President Muhammadu Buhari's administration that says it wants to fight corruption. So tonight, I have the lawyer to Mr. Ibrahim Magu, Mr. Oluwatoyin Ojaoma from our Abuja studio, and also the head of the Transparency International in Nigeria, Mr. Hawal Ramsajani. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight. Perhaps it's a good way to start by asking Mr. Magu's lawyer, there are a lot of allegations that are going on, especially the ones that we're hearing from the office of the AGF. Give us or clarify for us, what are the allegations that this probe panel are putting before your client or your principal, Mr. Magu?
Well, the probe panel, like you have said, is just to clarify the activities of the commission. They are only going there to clarify the activities of the commission. So, you know, the agency, the EFCC, reports to the president. And if the president says, yes, there are a lot of allegations, Magu has done this, Magu has done that, the president felt that because of the image of the commission and these allegations that are flying, yes, the president wants to know what are these allegations. Let it be investigated for it to be clarified. And the EFCC chairman went there to clarify. What is even basically the allegation? They said the amount the EFCC chairman told announced to the presidency is different from what that was paid. That the money is more. They are not saying it's lesser. It's more than the amount. So, and what you should understand is that the EFCC is going on the recoveries at the EFCC is an ongoing operation. It's an ongoing operation. So you can imagine if the recovery today, as of today, they are announcing their recoveries. They've recovered. If, for example, they recovered $1 billion today, and tomorrow another amount comes in, would that amount not be made public? That is what is happening. The amount Magu told the world is different from the amount that was released. And what is there is that the amount is even more. So Magu is supposed to be praised. Well, it is a Nigerian freedom. When you are fighting corruption, the forces behind corruption are so powerful. They are more powerful than COVID-19. I'm telling you, the forces behind corruption in this country. So you can imagine what is happening. So instead of Magu to be celebrated, because of the powerful the powers that this perpetrator of corruption, because of the powers they wield, they have the media, they have everybody backing them. So all they want to do is that they want to call a dog a bad name so that they can nail it. That is all.
Okay, so let's get Mr. Ramsajani into this conversation. You heard, Mr. Ramsajani, you heard what Mr. Magu's lawyer, Mr. Ojaoma, has said there, the position from his own point of view on this matter. Let me get your reaction to what has played out today.
Well, what has played out today, for anybody who cares about the integrity of the fight against corruption, the efforts being put by some of the agencies that are fighting corruption will definitely not be happy to see this kind of allegation level against really people who have given their life, who have sacrificed their life, their time, to really fight corruption. So I see this as, exposing the, inefficiency, or rather the inadequacy in the legal framework that we have, regarding the assets recovery. Because if the government had actually, agreed to pass the FOCA bill, we would be able to have established, assets recovery management, agency that will spell out how, to even, go about, assets recovery and how to be even accountable on this asset. So, but the government, because of lack of real commitment to ensuring that this fight against corruption actually succeeded, they have not been able to do that. So it is not Magu's problem. It is the institutional and legal absence that we have that would ensure effective, asset management in the country. You have so many agencies, recovering assets. Police is doing that, Custom is doing that, EFCC is doing that, ICPC is doing that, even NLD is doing that. So many of them. There's need for coordination. There's need for all these agencies to come under one roof so that we will have more accountable and transparent assets recovery process. And then also managing this recovered asset. We have recovered a lot of assets domestically and at international level. And they seem to have no central data from all these agencies recovering assets. And that is why some people who did not also want anti-corruption work to succeed are capitalizing on some of these gaps. And for me, it is now an opportunity for government to do the needful, to do the right thing by ensuring that we have the necessary legal framework in place that will deal with this issue. I don't think it is, good development in Nigeria that people who are putting their life to fight corruption are now being framed or are now being attacked in this manner. It will demoralize not only the EFCC staff and Magu himself, it will demoralize every Nigerian who cares about fighting corruption, because you are dealing with fundamental, like, his lawyer, said, you are dealing with mega corrupt institution or establishment that did not want this anti-corruption work to happen. And therefore, instead of looking at Magu, you should look at the, institutional deficit that you have, the legal deficit that makes even what the EFCC, or ICPC or any agency that is recovering asset to do. Close that gap. Be able to make sure that you have a central data information where information recovery about recovery, gold, silver, jewelry, plots, houses, estate, many things that have been recovered. Not only issue of money, but all these assets should be able to have, we should be able to have a public data, public information, central public information where you can say XYZ have been recovered and this is what has been used after you have successfully, deal with all the legal status. So that the absence of that information is what is creating room for some people to capitalize on that, to attack, anti-corruption agencies that are doing their best. Like I said, it is not individual problem. It is the institutional and legal gaps that we have that is, on this. And the other thing that I just want to say is that, you see, if this government is serious about really fighting corruption, we need to fight corruption in a manner that will prevent even the corruption to be happening. Not, when the corruption has happened, then you are chasing 10 naira, you go and spend 200 naira to deal with that. We need to close all the gaps, all the opportunistic areas where corruption are happening. We need to block it. And this can happen even when you are able to strengthen even the institution itself. Most of the anti-corruption agencies, we need to strengthen them to give them the necessary, resources that they need to do the work. For example,
all right. So, Mr. Ramsejani, so apologies. Yeah, let's take a breather. But when we come back, we look at some of the issues that has been raised and how this anti-corruption war can be fought in the light of what has happened today. We'll get back to Mr. Ojama when we return from this break, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Our major story for conversation tonight is the issue of the probe on Mr. Ibrahim Magu, the acting chairman of the EFCC. And in our Abuja studio, the head of the Transparency International in Nigeria, Mr. Awal Ramsajani, and there also is a lawyer, Mr. Oluwatoni Ojama. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for talking to us tonight. Let me come back to you, Mr. Ojama. In 2018, the former Minister of the Economy, of Finance, Mrs. Adeosun, raised a memo similar to what has happened, was reported under the AGF, or the present AGF, that there is no correlation between what there's no reconciliation between what was announced by Mr. Magu and the EFCC and what was delivered. How do you think this plays out in the minds, the optics of fighting corruption and the issue of transparency in the minds of Nigerians when 2 years ago a similar thing has happened?
Yes, Sheon, you need to understand something when it comes to, we are talking of asset recovery now. Some of these assets have been forfeited. Some are still subject to litigation. So if an asset has not been forfeited, you cannot expect that that asset will now be declared as an asset that has been recovered. So when it comes to security operations, asset recovery is a continuous process. So if I tell you that I have recovered 1 billion today, tomorrow I made another recovery, that means what I announce to you tomorrow cannot be the same with what I'm announcing to you again, because I'm making progress. The fundamental thing is that EFCC has been making progress in asset recovery. And the problem we are having is that there is a kind of a tussle between the office of the Attorney General of the Federation as to who takes over these assets, who disposes these assets. This is one thing that Nigerians are not looking at. So that is one of the problems that we are facing. But the fact remains that all these allegations that have been levied against Magu is because of the way Magu has taken the war on corruption. The war has been fought just nationally before. But Magu has now gone that, okay, if you steal Nigerian money and you run abroad, Magu has now decided to even go after you wherever you go to. So that is why the forces are now fighting back fiercely. You can look at what happened today. Within a few minutes, the whole media, you have seen it everywhere. Magu, because it shows that they are looking for the downfall of Magu. So that is what the question you should be asking. A man who is just an acting chairman, who is doing so much, and now with all the successes, they just want the man out. It's just unfortunate that the forces that are encouraging corruption in this country are technically winning the war. And it will just discourage everybody. Why most of us,
sorry, apologies, Mr. Ojama. What I raised here, sorry, Mr. Ojama, if perhaps maybe you need to deal with the question that I raised as to the issue of reconciliation of what is announced and what has been reconciled with the government in terms of amount. Similar thing that happened 2 years ago that the former Minister of Finance raised is perhaps one of the allegations that is being reported against Mr. Magu, aside the allegations of insubordination that has been raised, been reportedly raised. So if you can, because you also said that what Mr. Magu announced or what has been deposited is lower than what was announced. So there is a problem of reconciliation, is it?
I said it's more. I didn't say it's lower. What was announced is even more than what was even delivered. It's more. It's not, I'm not saying it's lower. It's more than it. So you can get it. It's more than it. And the issue of, I've made a point. I told you that the issue of this asset recovery has to do with, there are some of them that are all subject of litigation. These assets are, yes, the assets that have been seized, but these assets need to be forfeited fully before you can deliver them. You can even say these assets are now properly for the federal government. So if an asset is subject of litigation, you cannot claim that asset belongs to the federal government. It is when an asset has been finally forfeited to the federal government that it cannot become the property of the federal government. So that is where these issues are coming in. But that's where they are also using as a way to name Magu. But the truth is that if they have any, let them bring it out. The Magu is going to that panel and is going to come out clean. There's nothing. Magu has fought this corruption war with his conscience. He fought it with the fear of God.
Let's get Mr.
People in prison. You can see the powerful people that has gone to prison under Magu.
Let's get Mr. Ramsajani back into the conversation. Mr. Ramsajani, the optics is what your organization, Transparency International, has always reported. And Nigeria slipped from 144 to 156 in the ranking order that was released in 2019 in the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. The optics is important for you, is it, Mr. Ramsajani? In the whole, absolutely, whatever the outcome becomes or whatever has happened today, could this affect our transparency ranking?
Well, like you know very well, Transparency International, CISLAC, we have been advocating for some of these, institutional reforms, some of the, absent of the legal framework that will deal with all these controversies that we have. Like I stated in the beginning of my conversation this evening, I said the absence of legal framework is what is creating this problem. Because when you have, a very loose way of doing things, which is not backed by legal framework, then you are bound to have this controversy. Because there are so many interests, so many agencies are recovering this asset. Of course, EFCC is recovering more than other agencies, custom, police, ICPC, NLD, and so many of them, are doing that. So there's need for coordination of data, that have been, or assets that have been collected. It is not about the money cash. It is about, other assets like houses, plots, jewelry, gold, so many things that have been recovered, estate and cars, and all of this. There's need for us to have a clarity on where we are. Like he said, there are those ones that can be clarified as, ongoing legal issues, that their issues have not been resolved. There are those ones that have been forfeited completely. There are those ones that are still in the process of
Mr. Ramsajani,
so you need to have a data bank where you can...
So let me, because of our time, we need to close the conversation and allow yourself and Mr. Ojaoma to spend 30 seconds each to deal with this issue. For a lot of Nigerians that are wondering that maybe today's panel probe by the presidential panel is out, what it means. Is it standard practice for interagency scrutiny? For you, is this a standard practice or is unusual?
Well, Mr. Shion, what the panel is not, it's just to make a clarification. Anybody can be invited to. Magu is a public servant as far as I'm concerned. And the president can decide, he's subject to the directives of the president. If the president says yes, because there's a lot of allegations. You know, for the Attorney General of the Federation to make this kind of weighty allegation against Magu, and with the fight on corruption, the president needs to ensure that these issues are clarified. And I'm actually in support of this thing, so that the whole world can see that Magu is a clean person. It is a good one to give him a clean bill.
All right. So let's close the program and get Mr. Ramsajani's 30 seconds on this process. Is the process a standard practice for you?
Well, for me, honestly speaking, this is not, we are dealing with a very sensitive issue of fighting corruption. I think if there are some issues, there should be internal processes that the oversight responsibility of, if you have, like, for example, board, if EFCC has a board, this will have been even addressed at the board level. Now, if there was no board, then there should be some mechanism that the supervising ministry or minister should have dealt with this matter. But the way I see this is just out there to scandalize one another, not really in the interest of fighting the corruption. It is about, personal interest, the way I see this. Otherwise, why should we publicize issues like this? If you have issues with
Mr. Ramsajani, we're definitely out of time now.
The National Assembly intervene.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Awa Ramsajani, the head of Transparency International in Nigeria, and Mr. Oluwatoyin Ojaoma, a lawyer. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And that's how much we can serve you tonight. Bye-bye, everyone.